Welcome, dear listener, to a collection of stories spun from the delicate pages of the Whispering Light. Each tale held within this enchanted tome was lovingly crafted by the gentle hand of Queen Simone, the kind-hearted ruler of the Kingdom of Tranquil Dreams. Her words are a soothing melody, a balm for restless hearts, and a guiding light through the wonders of imagination. So, let your mind drift and your heart be light, for what you are about to hear is no ordinary story. It is a gift, passed down through the ages, meant to bring joy, laughter, and a touch of magic to all who listen. This tale is called The Light That Broke Through Darkness. In a world where magic flowed like rivers through valleys of emerald and gold, there was a land named Alanthea. There, lush forests whispered secrets to the wind, and towering mountains cast long shadows over vast plains. Hidden among these enchanting landscapes was a man named Elias, a father whose heart burned with an unquenchable love for his two daughters, Luna and Rose. Elias stood tall and proud, his skin a deep mahogany hue that shimmered like polished onyx under the sun's glow. His eyes, a creamy hazel, held a warmth that could melt even the coldest of hearts, and his black hair, though cropped short, framed his strong, resolute features. A neatly kept beard added to his noble visage, giving him an aura of strength tempered with kindness. But despite his commanding presence, Elias had been brought low by one whom he had once called his beloved. It had all started with a cruel trick, one that had cost him 5 long years of agony. Seraphine, the mother of his children, was a woman whose soul had become twisted and deformed by greed and bitterness. Short in stature and once considered the fairest of all the women in their village, she had long, jet-black hair that now fell in limp strands around a face marked by deep wrinkles. What little beauty she had left was overshadowed by a permanent smirk that twisted her lips, reflecting the malice festering in her heart. Her voice, once melodic, had become harsh and foul, laced with curses and venom. She had found pleasure in manipulating others, weaving false tears and manufactured emotions to deceive those around her. It was through these dark talents that she had lured Elias into a trap set with the help of a mischievous fairy who served as a co-conspirator. The fairy, a sly creature with wings like fractured glass, had whispered false promises to Elias, leading him to believe that his daughters were in grave danger. Desperate to save Luna and Rose, Elias had followed the fairy into the depths of the sorcerer of Gormak's dungeons, only to be betrayed and imprisoned in a dark cell of cold stone and iron. For 5 miserable years, Elias had endured endless torment at the hands of the sorcerer. His days and nights had blurred together in a haze of pain and despair. His only solace was the distant memories of Luna and Rose's laughter. Yet even in the darkest moments, Elias's spirit refused to break. He held on to hope, believing that one day, he would escape and be reunited with his daughters. That day finally came when a small band of rebels, enemies of the sorcerer, stormed the dungeon. Amidst the chaos, Elias fought his way out, freeing himself from his shackles with a strength that had been tempered like steel. During his escape, he managed to seize a magical sword, its blade shimmering with a soft, opalescent glow and a shield of enchanted lava glass, its surface rippling with fiery energy. The sword, he learned, could cleave through any material, while the shield absorbed and redirected magical attacks. With these newfound weapons in hand, Elias emerged into the light of day, his resolve hardened by the years of suffering he had endured. But his freedom came at a terrible cost. His daughters were gone, spirited away by Seraphine, who had used the wealth Elias inherited from his uncle to build herself a new life of luxury and power. Rumors reached Elias's ears, rumors of a wicked woman with long black hair who dressed in silks and attended lavish banquets while her daughters were kept hidden away, forced to clean and toil like common slaves. Whispers spoke of Seraphine's plan to sell Luna and Rose into bondage, trading them to a corrupt noblewoman in exchange for favor and political influence. Elias's heart burned hotter with rage and desperation with every word he heard. He vowed to find his daughters, no matter the cost, and free them from the clutches of the woman who had once called herself their mother. The journey to track them down was fraught with danger. Seraphine, ever cunning, had gotten word of Elias's escape. Furious and panicked, she wasted no time in hiring dark creatures to hunt him down, hulking ogres with leathery skin and eyes that burned like coals, and demons from the lower planes, their bodies wreathed in shadows and flames. She sent them forth with one command: to kill Elias and ensure he never reached his daughters. The first attack came at the edge of the Murmuring Woods, a dense, ancient forest where the trees seemed to whisper secrets to those who dared enter. Elias had been resting by a small stream when the ground trembled beneath the weight of heavy footsteps. He looked up to see 2 ogres lumbering toward him, their hulking forms towering over the trees, carrying massive clubs studded with jagged iron. "Oi, what do we have here?" one of the ogres grunted, his voice like gravel scraping against rock. Looks like we found us a lost little lamb. More like a meal, the second ogre growled, his lips curling into a sneer. A juicy one at that. Elias rose slowly, his hand tightening around the hilt of his sword. The blade glinted in the dappled sunlight, its opalescent sheen shimmering with an ethereal light. I'm no meal, he said softly, his voice steady and calm. And I'm no lamb. The ogres laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the woods. Oh, look. He thinks he's a dire wolf, the first ogre mocked. With a roar, the ogres charged, their clubs swinging through the air with deadly force. Elias moved like a shadow, ducking beneath the first swing and bringing his sword up in a swift, clean arc. The blade sliced through the ogre's thick hide as if it were parchment, the creature's roar of pain cut short as it crumpled to the ground. The second ogre snarled and swung its club down, but Elias raised his shield just in time. The enchanted lava glass absorbed the impact, the fiery surface rippling with energy. With a grunt of effort, Elias pushed back, forcing the ogre off balance. He followed up with a quick, brutal thrust of his sword, and the creature's eyes widened with shock as the blade pierced its chest. Within moments, both ogres lay dead at his feet, their massive forms slumped against the trees. Elias wiped the blood from his blade, his gaze hardening. Seraphine, I'm coming for you. But the ogres were just the beginning. Demons followed soon after, sinister fiends with claws like obsidian and eyes that glowed a sickly yellow. They attacked in the dead of night, shrieking through the air with wings of smoke and fire. Elias's sword cleaved through them with precision, his shield deflecting their dark magic back at them. Though outnumbered and weary, Elias refused to fall. Each battle only strengthened his resolve, his thoughts always focused on Luna and Rose. His daughters. His precious girls who were suffering under Seraphine's cruelty. While Elias fought through every obstacle thrown his way, Luna and Rose endured their own torment. The girls lived in a grand manor, but their rooms were nothing more than squalid, windowless cells deep in the bowels of the estate. Each night, they were chained to the walls, their thin wrists bruised and chafed from the iron cuffs. They slept on the cold stone floor, huddled together for warmth as rats scurried around them, the darkness pressing in on all sides. During the day, they were forced to clean the house from top to bottom, scrubbing floors until their hands bled and their knees ached. All the while, Seraphine paraded through the manor in elegant gowns, attending banquets and parties nearly every evening. She reveled in the adoration and envy of others, her laughter filling the halls as she sipped wine and dined on rich delicacies. But for Luna and Rose, there was no laughter, no joy, only fear and pain. Seraphine's cruelty knew no bounds. If the girls made a mistake, even a small one, they would feel the whips sting on their backs. She cursed and scolded them, calling them worthless and weak, her voice a venomous hiss that made them trembling with terror. Worthless little brats, Seraphine would spit, her face contorted with rage. I curse my ill fortune in having to birth you two. You're lucky I even let you live, let alone remain under my roof. You should be grateful. But Luna and Rose knew better. They knew they weren't lucky. They knew they were prisoners in their own home, trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. Every night, as they lay chained in the darkness. Luna and Rose whispered the same prayer, a desperate plea to the gods, to the spirits, to anyone who might be listening. Please, let Papa find us. Please, let him save us. Their voices were soft, trembling with exhaustion and fear, but there was a stubborn spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. Even as the days bled into weeks, and the weeks into months, they held on to the memory of Elias's warm embrace, his gentle smile, and the way his deep, soothing voice would tell them stories of faraway lands and brave heroes who fought against impossible odds. It was that hope that kept them going, that kept them fighting through the hunger, the pain, and the despair. But as the day of the sale drew nearer, that hope began to waver. Seraphine had made it clear that they were nothing more than pawns to her, a way to gain favor and power through their suffering. She would often stand outside their cell, her expression twisted into a cruel smile as she watched them huddle together for comfort. Soon, you'll both be gone, she would say in a sing-song voice, her eyes gleaming with malice. And I'll be free of you pathetic little burdens forever. Luna and Rose would cling to each other, their hearts pounding with fear. Please, Mother, don't sell us, Rose would beg, her voice choked with sobs. We'll be good, I promise. Just don't send us away. Seraphine's laughter would echo through the dark corridors, a sound that sent chills down their spines. Beg all you want, she would sneer, her smile widening. You'll fetch a good price, and once you're gone, I'll be richer and more powerful than ever. So cry, scream, beg, it's music to my ears. The girls knew there was no reasoning with her, no way to appeal to the shred of humanity that might still exist beneath her twisted facade. But still, they prayed for a miracle. And that miracle came in the form of Elias. Elias had finally traced Seraphine's trail to a secluded manor on the outskirts of the city of Horndale, where the trees stood like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches shrouded in mist. The air crackled with dark magic, the entire estate wrapped in an oppressive aura that made Elias's skin prickle. He could feel the malevolent energy radiating from the manor, a suffocating presence that clung to his senses like oil. Seraphine had fortified her home well. Gargoyles perched atop the gateposts, their stone eyes glowing with a faint, eerie light as they scanned the perimeter for intruders. Shadows moved within the windows, twisted forms that could only be demons or other dark creatures under her control. But Elias was not deterred. He would face 1,000 demons, fight through endless darkness, if it meant saving his daughters. With a deep breath, Elias tightened his grip on his sword and stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the manor's front gates. The gargoyles turned their heads toward him in unison, their mouths opening wide as if to unleash a warning cry. Before they could react, Elias raised his shield, its surface flaring with fiery light as it absorbed the dark energy emanating from the gargoyles. He pushed forward, the ground trembling beneath his feet as he forced his way through the magical barrier protecting the manor. A shrill, piercing sound filled the air, the gargoyles' desperate cry of alarm. The shadows within the manor stirred, and within moments, the gates swung open with a resounding crash. A dozen armored figures poured out, their eyes glowing a sickly green, their weapons crackling with dark magic. Elias didn't hesitate. With a fierce battle cry, he charged forward, his sword blazing with light as he clashed with the first wave of defenders. His movements were swift and precise, each strike guided by years of training and the sheer force of his love for his daughters. His enemy's dark magic crackled and fizzled against his shield, deflected and absorbed by the enchanted lava glass. He fought with the strength of 10 men, cutting through the armored figures as if they were made of shadow and smoke. But for every one he felled, 2 more took its place, their twisted forms surging forward with relentless aggression. Sweat dripped down Elias's brow, his muscles burning with exertion. But he did not falter. "Luna! Rose!" he shouted, his voice carrying over the clamor of battle. "I'm here. I'm coming for you." The air seemed to vibrate with his words as if his resolve had shaken the very essence of the manor. A ripple of power spread outward from where he stood, pushing back the shadows that sought to engulf him. The ground beneath his feet trembled, and a massive figure burst through the main gates with a deafening roar. It was an ogre, twice the size of any Elias had faced before, its skin mottled and scarred, its eyes burning with a savage, bloodthirsty light. A cruel, jagged sword was clutched in one hand while the other dragged a spiked chain that trailed behind it, gouging deep furrows into the earth. "Pitiful human," the ogre bellowed, its voice reverberating like thunder. "You dare challenge Mistress Seraphine's power?" Elias raised his shield, his gaze never wavering. "I dare to challenge anything that stands between me and my daughters. At present, you appear to be." With a roar that shook the very ground, the ogre charged, swinging its massive sword with terrifying speed. Elias met the blow head-on, his shield flaring with a burst of fiery light that sent sparks flying in all directions. The force of the impact drove him back several paces, his feet digging into the earth as he struggled to hold his ground. But he did not fall. With a fierce cry, Elias pushed forward, his sword arcing through the air in a blur of motion. The blade struck the ogre's thick hide, slicing deep into its shoulder. Black blood spurted from the wound, the creature's howl of pain echoing through the courtyard. "Where are they?" Elias demanded, his voice a growl. "Where are Luna and Rose?" The ogre sneered, its lips pulling back to reveal jagged, yellowed teeth. "You'll never reach them. You'll die here like the worthless worm you are." It lashed out with its spiked chain, the cruel barbs tearing through the air. Elias ducked, bringing his shield up just in time to deflect the blow. The chain rebounded with a metallic clatter, and before the ogre could recover, Elias lunged forward, his sword flashing in the dim light. With a roar of defiance, Elias drove the blade deep into the ogre's chest. The creature's eyes widened with shock, a gurgling sound escaping its throat as it staggered backward, clutching at the wound. For a moment, it swayed on its feet, its massive form trembling. Then, with a final, shuddering breath, it collapsed to the ground, the earth shaking beneath its weight. Elias stood over the fallen creature, his chest heaving with exertion. Blood, both his own and that of his enemies, dripped from his sword, staining the ground beneath his feet. He glanced up at the manor, his gaze fierce and determined. "I'm coming for you, Seraphine," he murmured, his voice low and dangerous. "You won't hurt them again." Luna and Rose clung to each other inside the manor, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. "Did you hear that?" Luna whispered, her eyes wide. I think it was Papa." Rose's breath hitched, her gaze darting toward the small, barred window high above them. "Papa? Is he really here?" The sound of battle reverberated through the walls, shouts, clashes of steel, and the roar of some terrible creature. Luna tightened her grip on Rose's hand. "He's come for us, Rose. He's really come." Tears welled in Rose's eyes, a trembling smile breaking through her fear. "He's come to save us." Their hope was a fragile, precious thing, something that had been buried beneath layers of pain and despair. But now, with the sound of Elias's voice echoing through the darkness, it flared to life once more. "Please, Papa," Luna whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Find us, before it's too late." Elias fought his way through the manor's defenders, his sword and shield flashing as he cut down anything that stood in his way. Each step brought him closer to his daughters, his resolve unshakable, his determination a force of nature. He reached the main hall, its grand, opulent decor marred by the dark magic that seeped from every corner. At the far end of the hall stood Seraphine, draped in a gown of shimmering black silk that seemed to ripple like liquid shadows. Her long hair cascaded down her back, and her lips curved into a cruel, mocking smile around a long ivory pipe. Well, well," she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Look who's finally come home." Elias's gaze burned with hatred as he stepped forward, his sword raised. "Where are they, Seraphine? Where are Luna and Rose?" Seraphine removed the pipe from her mouth, tossing it into a slumbering hearth. Tendrils of noxious green smoke trailed out between red-painted lips. She laughed, a sound that grated on his ears like nails on glass. "Why should I tell you, Elias? You abandoned them, remember? You left them in my care." "You know that's not true," Elias growled, his grip tightening on the hilt of his sword. "You tricked me. You stole everything from me. But I'm taking it back, starting with my daughters, you foul-smelling harpy." Seraphine's eyes gleamed with malice. "You think you can just waltz in here and take them from me?" She raised her hand, a twisted ring of black iron glinting on her palm. "You think you're strong enough to defeat me?" Before Elias could react, she slid the ring onto her middle finger, and a surge of dark energy exploded outward, enveloping her in a whirlwind of shadows and lightning. Her form twisted and contorted, her body growing taller, larger, until she towered over him, a grotesque, monstrous beast with eyes that burned like twin suns. "I am their mother," she snarled, her voice now a deep, guttural growl that shook the walls. "I am power incarnate. You are nothing." With a roar that shook the very foundations of the manor, she lunged at Elias, her massive claws tearing through the air. But Elias stood firm. "I am their father," he whispered, his voice filled with a fierce, unyielding love. "And I will protect them, no matter what." With a cry of defiance, Elias raised his sword and charged, meeting Seraphine's monstrous form head-on. The battle that followed was a whirlwind of fury and magic, the two of them clashing with a force that sent shockwaves through the manor. The battle between Elias and the monstrous Seraphine was a storm of light and shadow, magic and steel. Seraphine's claws slashed through the air, leaving trails of dark energy in their wake. Each swipe shook the ground beneath Elias's feet, but he stood his ground, his shield glowing brightly as it absorbed the brunt of her attacks. The enchanted lava glass rippled with every strike, the energy crackling and bursting outward in brilliant flashes of orange and red. "You're weak, Elias," Seraphine roared, her voice reverberating through the hall. "I'll crush you like the insect you are." She swung a massive arm down, the force of the blow sending cracks spiderwebbing across the stone floor. Elias rolled to the side, his movements quick and fluid despite his exhaustion. He swung his sword in a wide arc, the blade humming with power as it cleaved through one of Seraphine's twisted limbs. A loud roar of pain shook the manor, the walls shuddering under the force of her scream. But even as blood, thick and black as tar, gushed from the wound, Seraphine only laughed, her twisted features contorting into a hideous grin. "Is that the extent of what you can do?" she hissed, her voice dripping with malice. "I expected more from you, Elias." Elias gritted his teeth, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He was so tired, but he couldn't afford to falter now. Not when he was so close. Not when Luna and Rose were just beyond these walls, waiting for him. "Tell me where they are, Seraphine," he demanded, his voice echoing through the hall. "Where are my daughters?" Seraphine's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something dark and cruel passing over her monstrous face. "Why don't you find out for yourself?" "Oh, wait. What concern should the dead have for the living?" With a rumbling snarl, she raised her clawed hand and slammed it into the ground. The stone beneath Elias's feet shattered, and a shockwave of dark energy erupted from the impact, throwing him backward. He crashed into a column, the breath knocked from his lungs as pain lanced through his body. Before he could recover, Seraphine was upon him, her massive form looming over him like a shadow of death. She bared her fangs in a wicked grin, her eyes glowing with unholy fire. "Did you really think you could defeat me?" she whispered, her voice a low, sinister purr. "You're nothing, Elias. Nothing." She raised her hand, claw glinting in the dim light, and brought it down with terrifying speed. But Elias was ready. He raised his shield with a shout, the enchanted surface flaring with a brilliant, fiery light. The force of Seraphine's blow struck the shield with a resounding crack, the impact sending shockwaves of energy spiraling outward. Seraphine shrieked, her monstrous form reeling backward as the light seared through her, burning away the darkness that clung to her like a shroud. Elias pushed himself to his feet, his gaze fierce and unrelenting. "I am not nothing," he said softly, his voice filled with a quiet, unbreakable strength. "I am their father." With a burst of speed, Elias lunged forward, his sword flashing through the air like a comet. The blade struck Seraphine's chest, piercing through her monstrous form with a blinding surge of light. A scream of agony tore from her throat, the sound reverberating through the hall as she staggered backward, her claws clutching at the blade embedded in her chest. "No, no," she howled, her voice filled with rage and desperation. "This can't be. I'm stronger than you. You're a monster," Elias interrupted, his gaze hard and unyielding. "And you will never hurt them again." With a final, powerful surge of strength, Elias twisted the blade, the light of his sword flaring brighter and brighter until it enveloped them both in a blinding radiance. Seraphine's scream echoed through the hall, a sound of pure anguish and fury. Then, with a shuddering gasp, her form crumbled, the darkness that had twisted her body unraveling like smoke in the wind. The monstrous figure collapsed inward, shrinking and withering until all that was left was a small, frail woman, Seraphine's true form, broken and weak. She looked up at Elias with wide, disbelieving eyes, her lips trembling as she tried to speak. "Mercy, please, Elias. But Elias shook his head, his expression one of sorrow and resolve. "Goodbye, Seraphine," he whispered softly. With a final, sharp twist, he pulled his sword free. Seraphine's body slumped to the ground, the life fading from her eyes as the last remnants of her dark magic dissolved into nothingness. For a long moment, Elias stood there, his chest heaving with exertion, his gaze fixed on the still form of the woman who had once been his beloved. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over him, grief, anger, relief, but he pushed them aside. There was no time for that now. He sheathed his sword, his thoughts turning to his daughters. Luna, Rose. He raced through the manor, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Every door he passed, every shadowed corner, he called out their names, his heart pounding with fear and hope. Finally, he reached the heavy wooden door leading to the manor's lowest levels, the place where Seraphine had hidden his daughters away. With a powerful kick, Elias sent the door crashing open. He stormed down the dark, narrow staircase, his eyes straining to see through the gloom. And then, he saw them in the dim light of a single, flickering torch. Luna and Rose were huddled together in a filthy cell, their wrists bound by heavy chains, their small forms trembling with fear and exhaustion. "Luna, Rose," Elias shouted, his voice breaking with relief. The girls looked up, their eyes widening in disbelief. "Papa," Luna whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. Elias dropped to his knees, his hands shaking as he reached for them. He pulled them into his arms, holding them close, his heart aching with the intensity of his love for them. "It's me," he murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm here. You're safe now." Rose began to sob, her small hands clutching at his tunic as if afraid he would disappear. "Papa, you're really here. You came for us." "I'll always come for you," Elias whispered, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. "No matter what." Luna buried her face in his shoulder, her thin frame racked with silent sobs. We thought we'd never see you again." Elias held them tighter, his own tears falling freely. "I'm so sorry, my darlings. I'm so sorry. But I'm here now." And I'm never letting you go again." They stayed like that for what felt like an eternity, the three wrapped in each other's embrace, the dungeon's darkness fading away in the light of their reunion. Finally, Elias took a deep breath and pulled back, his gaze filled with fierce determination. "Let's get you out of here." He shattered the chains binding their wrists with a single strike of his sword, then scooped them up into his arms, holding them close as he carried them up the stairs and out of the manor. The journey back to the village was long, but Elias didn't falter. With Luna and Rose nestled safely in his arms, he walked through the murmuring woods, his gaze never leaving the path ahead. The air felt lighter now, and the oppressive weight of Seraphine's dark magic lifted at last. When they finally stepped out of the forest and into the eastern field surrounding their former home, the first rays of dawn peeked over the horizon, casting a warm, golden light across the land. The villagers, roused by the sight of Elias's long-awaited return, gathered around, their faces alight with joy and disbelief. "He did it," someone whispered, their voice filled with awe. "He really defeated that vile woman and saved those precious girls." Elias lowered Luna and Rose gently to the ground, his heart swelling with pride and love as he watched them run forward, their smiles brighter than the rising sun. "Papa's home," Luna cried, her voice ringing out like a bell. "He saved us," Rose added, her laughter bubbling up like a joyous melody. The villagers cheered, their voices mingling together in a chorus of celebration. Elias felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a burden he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. He had done it. He had saved his daughters. He had brought them home. The nightmare was over. As the villagers gathered around to welcome him back, Elias knelt down and wrapped his arms around Luna and Rose again, his gaze softening as he looked into their bright, hopeful eyes. "From now on," he murmured, his voice steady and sure, "we'll be together. No more dungeons. No more darkness. Just us." Luna and Rose nodded, their eyes shining with tears of happiness. "We love you, Papa," Luna whispered. "We always will," Rose added. "And I love you both," Elias replied, his voice filled with unshakable resolve. "More than anything in this whole world and beyond." With a final, lingering embrace, Elias stood, his gaze sweeping over the village toward the family's old house on the hill he had fought so hard to return to. The sun rose higher, bathing the land in a radiant light that seemed to promise a new beginning, a future free of fear and pain. Elias smiled, his heart filled with hope. Thank you for listening to this tale from the Whispering Light. I hope it brought a smile to your heart and a bit of wonder to your day. If you enjoyed the story and would like to journey with us through more enchanting adventures, please consider subscribing, clicking the bell icon for notifications, and hitting the like button. That way, you'll never miss a new chapter from Queen Simone's cherished collection. And if this story touched you, I invite you to leave a comment or share it with someone who could use a little more joy and magic in their life. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with light and laughter.